Hey guys, today we're doing an experiment in something called chromatography. Chromatography is how detectives or investigators investigate pigments, dyes, and inks, things that we use for coloring. Now, the way that we get colors in certain clothing or in certain inks comes from blending different colors. And so in order to do that, different companies, different brands do different things. So by separating out the colors and by looking at the components that these inks are made of and these dyes are made of, we're able to trace them back and pick out exactly what kind of pen did writing, or what kind of dye was used on these clothes, or what kind of makeup this person was wearing if we find a smudge at the scene of a crime. Today we're going to be doing this with different inks. Specifically, I've chosen 4 different kinds of black ink. And if you're doing this at home on your own, I would also recommend very highly that you have different brands, different types, but all the same color. When I write it on the testing paper, it should all look the same until I do the test. Now I'm going to run down the materials first, and then I'll prep them after while this is paused recording. But the first thing I'm going to show you is everything we're going to need to do this experiment. So, for our materials, the first thing we need is at least 3 types of pen. Now I've got 4 here. I've got a ink pen with a felt tip. I have a gel pen. I have a washable marker. And I have a Sharpie. And these are all black, so they're all black ink for this one. We're testing that with the same color of everything. For as many pens as you're testing, you're also going to need a cup. So I have 4 of these little cups to do the test with. You're also going to need chromatography paper. Now this is a special extra absorbent paper that allows things to flow into each other and is very porous, more so than even regular paper is. Now you might not have that at home, but that's okay because neither do I. What I do have is coffee filters, and that's going to do just fine for this. So I'm going to cut strips of this coffee filter when the camera's turned off, and I'll be using those. I'm also going to be needing my chemical that will separate out these inks. You could use one of a few different things. Rubbing alcohol would work just fine. What I have here is 100% acetone nail polish remover. That'll do just great too. So if you have any nail polish remover, if you have any acetone around the house, that's perfect. That's all you need. Finally, you're going to need some way to hang the strips over into the cup so that they're not touching the sides of the cup. And for that purpose, I'm just going to be hanging them off of barbecue skewers, because that's what I've got. Alright, that's our materials. Those materials are going to take some preparation, so I'm going to pause the video for a second, get those ready for you, and then we're going to do the experiment. See you in a sec. Alright, now as we do this, also a little bit of caution. Acetone is paint thinner, so be careful to put something down to block anything from getting through to, say, a stained table. I just got a drop on my kitchen table and will now need to be repairing it. So that's a thing to watch out for. Unless you also want to buy some paint stain and repair your table, make sure you're careful with this and have something down to block it. A placemat will hopefully be enough. Or, even better, do it on a surface that won't have a problem with this, like a kitchen counter that is not wood, that is granite or laminate or something like that. Alright, now, as I'm working with this, I am trying to set it up so that if this hangs, it will hang just so that the very bottom of it is touching the acetone, those are different chemicals, in the bottom of this glass. This glass is only full to about 1/2 centimeter of acetone. There's not very much in it at all. We only want the very bottom of this filter paper to get any acetone on it at all while we're doing this. Now that I've got this about where I want it, I'm going to tape it around the stick so it stays in place. I'm going to drop a pen in the process, so I'll have to pick that up in a second. And once it's the way I want it, I'm going to take one of my pens, listing what each one is as I go. So this gel pen will be sample 1. Going to write sample 1 at the top, or just the number 1. And then about 1 centimeter up, which is about a fingernail, about a thumbnail for your size, I'm going to draw a dot on the paper. Now you'll see, because I'm using filter paper here, it actually soaks through very dramatically. It goes right through the paper and it really saturates it. So again, not a bad idea to have something down. I did have a little bit of smudge come through that I had to wipe up with my finger just there. So about 1 centimeter up, put a big dot. I'm going to do this for all of my samples, numbering them as I go so I can track which is which. Again, sample 1 is my gel pen. And after those samples are prepared, we'll dip them in this acetone and see how that looks. Okay, we're ready to go now. I have my 4 samples set out and ready. Sample 1 is this gel pen. Sample 2 is a Sharpie. Sample 3 is sticking to the table. Sample 3 is a Crayola washable marker. And finally, sample 4 is this fancy calligraphy pen that I use when I'm writing nice thank you cards and fancy notes to people that I want to impress. Each one of these is going to be hanging in the acetone just enough that the bottom of the paper is touching the acetone and getting soaked, but not so much that it's making its way to the ink on the page. Let's hang them and show what happens. So we can see as the acetone makes its way up, the ink in the calligraphy pen is already responding very dramatically. It's separating out a lot. Oddly, the washable marker is barely changing at all. Now that we're starting to get this separation, I'm going to start to pull them out. And we're going to let them air dry. Now to do that, I'm going to need to hang them elsewhere, so I'll be back once they're hanging in a different spot. Oh. Actually, before I stop recording, let's make sure we get a good look here at the Sharpie beginning to turn blue. The gel pen has a streak of orange at the top, which is new and interesting. Alright, I'm going to stop recording, hang these to dry, and we'll take a look again once they've dried out. Okay, let's take a look at our results here. Our first one was, again, this Bic Roller Gel Pen. Roller Glide Gel Pen. If you know who Mrs. Lyon is, they are her absolute favorite, and if you ever see them in a store, pick some up for her because she will be your best friend if you give her a pack of these. Now this one, when we look at this, the dot itself didn't change very much, but there's a strange, like, rusty, yellowy orange streak that has started coming up from the top of this dot that wasn't there before. So, take your time, do your observations. The black mostly stayed put, but this weird orange did streak out of it. Kind of looks like it's smoking, like it's on fire a little bit. Our second was our Sharpie, which, strangely enough, disappeared the most when it was exposed to the acetone. Now this was our dot. It wicked its way up through here and became kind of a bluey purple the further it got up. Down here at the bottom it's still black and gray, but as it got wicked up through the paper, as the acetone drew it up, you started to see blues and purples come out of it as well. Our third sample was the same kind of thing you might get in your pencil kit at the beginning of the year, just a Crayola washable marker. Amazingly, almost nothing happened to this one. We still just have the dot that I drew in washable marker. Nothing really got brought up. It looks kind of the same as it did before. Despite the fact that this marker is water soluble, when exposed to acetone, almost nothing happened to it. Finally, we have the fancy calligraphy pen. Now this one, and just because I love how silly the name of this is. The brand is Le Pen. So Le Pen turned out like this. Now this one was a weird mix of kind of the gel pen and the Sharpie. We saw a little bit of both in here. We see, much like with the gel pen, the initial burst of ink at the bottom stayed very much the same, but there was some orange being brought up. However, as the orange was brought up, it brought a lot of the black with it as well, and up at the top we have that same mix of purples and blues and dark ink at the top that the Sharpie gave us. So we have a mix here of the gel pen staying dark at the bottom and leaving orange streaks, but those orange streaks then feed into the same thing we shot with the Sharpie. So we're getting a little bit of both in this one. Kind of interesting. No matter what, we can see that all four pens had a very different reaction to this experiment. So, depending on which one was used to write a note, I could perform this experiment on that ink and be able to determine which pen wrote a note. And that's it. You've got your observations and conclusion questions to fill out on your assignment this week, so hopefully that's enough to go from there. Once again, if you do this at home, be aware, acetone is paint thinner, so don't do this on a painted surface. Alright, that's it guys. Take care. Peace.